Welcome to Rise in Practice from Lausanne, Switzerland, where every day there's another 1,500 cases of COVID, way more than we even had in March and April. I am Professor Demian Hodari of EHL Lausanne.
And from lovely London, welcome. My name is Anita Mendiratta, and as always, I'm thrilled to join Professor Hodari for Rise in Practice. What is Rise in Practice? Well, our viewers have told us they want to see more and understand more about the new world of travel and tourism ahead of us. We've talked about different things that are going to affect so many people. It could be insurance, it could be leadership, whatever it might be. But one of the subjects that's come up over and over and over is startups, because a lot of people are recognized during this time they've got some great ideas and they think it could be a great business idea. So we have joining us a superb guest, KERSHING Go. She's a Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Alliances at Singapore Tourism Board, a brilliant guest joining us from Asia. And she's going to talk to us about her experience in being ultimately a tourism board that is working with startups to be able to mainstream startups in a way that advances the tourism sector. Who does she have with her? One of her favorite startups. His name is Arturo GAONA, and he is one of the founders of a group called Wheel the World. He's the Chief Partnerships Officer, and we look forward to sharing their story. So, KERSHING, over to you.
I would like to introduce my chosen startup for this segment, and it's Arturo from Wheel the World. I first had the good fortune of sitting through Arturo's pitch in Singapore when he flew in to talk about his team and his project. What really struck me, and that actually really remained very much ingrained in me, was one, how passionate he is about the cause that he's driving, and how authentic that voice came through for me. That the startup was born out of the belief that no one should be left behind in the wonder of travel, and how they brought their friend along on the trek to Patagonia. So when I wanted a voice in this session to be my partner, I thought I wanted someone that is not going to be just on this platform to proliferate and sell his startup. I wanted someone that truly spoke from the heart. That was very important for me. I wanted someone that is not looking at just a startup for monetization purposes. Granted, that's the end goal at the end of a lot of the growing of the business. And I wanted someone that would be able to kind of give a lot of hope to what travel and tourism means for all of us. And be that voice of inspiration to all of us. And I found a good partner in Arturo. So STA, which is Singapore Tourism Accelerator, was started up last year. And the intention of this was to really use Singapore and STB as a hothouse to provide a conducive environment for global startups to be able to come and test-fit their ideas and bring their initial thought starters and their ideas to the next level. They are housed within STB in a dedicated facility of a lab of sorts. They are given a 6-month stint. They are flown from all over the world to come to Singapore if they get selected through a pitch process. They're given a stipend to live in Singapore for 6 months. And they go through an intensive 6-month program where they are being matched with mentors. They are being helped along the way to improve on the capabilities that they need. But I think what's really special about this is at the tail end of it, they are actually matched with industry partners in Singapore. So we are actually into our batch 3 now. The program started in October 2019. And with each batch, we select about 16 startups to be part of the program. And Arturo is actually one of our candidates for our batch 1 in terms of the pitch session. And I thought it would be interesting for him to give a perspective on, from a startup perspective, on what the scene is like and how did he end up from Mexico City to Singapore.
Thanks, Kershing. So I would like to start just with like a personal sense on like why starting a business. Before Will the World, I was in the medical devices industry, nothing to do with traveling or accessibility. But it was always in my mind. And at some point during 2017, I saw the opportunity with a group of friends of actually taking a project that we did into a company. And the concept was just a no-brainer for everyone. And in beginning 2018, we committed full time into doing Will the World of something big, something huge. Our dream was clear, and we needed to take action. The advantages of starting or becoming an entrepreneur is, before as being an employee of a corporation, it just gives you a lot of flexibility to implement your ideas and to execute in your own terms. So that's something super interesting, because at the end of the day, you are just alone with your team out there executing and trying to get some traction for your idea to eventually become some interesting business for potential investors, for example, because without this type of support, you're not going to get very far. So as you were mentioning, Anita, you're facing a new reality, and it's changing every day. It has been very challenging for us because, of course, we're a travel startup that was slowly getting more traction on customers. I remember this week, somewhere in February, where we were having 4 or 5 customers in one day in different parts of the world exporting without limits. And then just a week later, everything was gone out of air. Since November of last year, we were looking for investors for our seed round. So, of course, the pandemic made us to reinvent ourselves in many different ways, but also to keep pushing to be able to close the round. If it was not for the investors that we got into our investment round, it may be it could have been a very different story for us, because we have been focusing on developing our new platform, which we are going to be launching somewhere in the beginning of next year. So with facing a new reality, or the next reality, there is just a lot of innovation that is going to be needed in order to keep things as we were used to. A lot of services, a lot of innovation is needed in order for us to be able to adapt to this next reality. And sustainable tourism, it is extremely important in this next reality. The whole industry was stopped, like from 100 to 0 in just a few weeks, and it made us, to think about what are we doing and why are we doing things as we have. So sustainable tourism, it is a way to go. Will the World belongs to sustainable tourism. We are a platform that helps people with disabilities to explore the world without limits. So through our website, they can search and book accessible products. And tourism industry is actually not ready for this type of customers, even though it is already a huge market. And well, just to close my answer to the question, we were super happy actually to be accepted in the program from the STV. We were in Mexico City as part of the Google Launchpad program for Latin American startups, and the director of the co-working space where the event was happening mentioned us about this accelerator program in Singapore. Singapore. That's very far away, but why not? Let's knock on the door. So long story short, we connected with the team of Found 8 and STV, and we were accepted. And it has been an amazing journey because just as you were mentioning, Anita, that you needed to reinvent yourselves and learn and learn how to do new things in order to be able to produce with this next reality or new reality. It also pushed us to that because our projects are very hands-on and we were not going to Singapore. So we needed to create a bunch of things in order to execute the pilots with the industry partners. So I believe that it is a good time to stop and think for those who were not lucky to keep their jobs in this crisis. What type of solutions are needed out there in order to make tourism more sustainable? Investors, yes, of course, they invest in an idea, but when you are in a very early stage, they are actually investing in you. So you need to really have clarity of your why and how that connects to your personal story. You know, you really need to have a powerful why in order to convince potential investors to join your project, because nowadays it's going to be very difficult for you to scale without this type of clarity. So it may not be a specific question, but understanding your why, your purpose, and connecting that with your background is super important. Another question that you need to address from a very early stage is your scalability model. How can you impact not only thousands, but perhaps millions of lives with the idea that you're trying to execute? So scalability and dreaming big, aiming high, having your moonshot, just like us, since the first month, we were super clear that we wanted to allow millions of people to go to thousands of destinations. That's like our moonshot. So in order to do that, we need to build a platform, and we need a lot of technology. So scalability, how are you going to scale, is super important. And then another one, from my experience, is, can you show me some traction on your project, on your idea? You need to be able to bootstrap from your very early days on creative ways in order to get traction by partnering with other organizations, by partnering with potential sponsors, by doing things that show that other organizations believe in you. So showing traction by implementing innovative ideas in a very early stage is going to open you the doors with investors.
So maybe I'll talk a little bit about what we look for in the pitch and deciding which company or which startup would be part of the program. I think it mirrors a little bit of what Arturo mentioned earlier. We do look at how innovative is the proposed solution. I'll be honest to say that it's not really a case where we are looking at you have to be the only one with the idea, right? But I think it's a combination of a good 3 factors that come together that makes you the perfect candidate. So yes, one, how innovative is the proposed solution, how passionate you are in terms of your proposed solution, and what is a good product market fit for the market you're trying to enter. So an Asian market context could be totally different from a European model, from an American model. So is there a good fit in terms of the product to the market? So that's what we look at as well. The second point is exactly what Arturo has mentioned. What's the scalability of the model of this proposed solution? Is this going to go beyond the POCs? Is this going to be something that's scalable? Is this going to be a possible monetization product for us from a tourism front? That's important. But I think what under siege all this it's really the team. And that mirrors a little bit of his point as well in terms of at the beginning stage of it is really how much trust do I have on the credential of the team that's coming to me with a proposed solution and a bright idea. So we do look quite a bit in terms of the team composition of the startup. Who's the founder? Who do you have in the team? What's their relevant skill sets? How do they come together in terms of the dynamic of the team to make this happen? And we are really amazed by the wide spectrum of proposed solution that's gotten into the pitch. And I remember sitting through Arturo's pitch, and I was sharing this with him as well on how impressed I am. I think personally for me, I was really impressed on how it came from the heart, and the story of how they wanted to take their friend along on this trek to Patagonia, and how the story and the company was formed on the basis that anybody should be able to travel and see the world and experience the magic of what travel is all about. I thought that was an amazing story from the company, and it really touches me in a different way. So that's in a nutshell, I think, what we look for. I think there is a huge spectrum of opportunity, largely because travel and tourism just touches so many different pillars of the industry, right? From your accommodation to retail to F&B to cruise, hospitality. The gamut is just so wide that I think the possibilities are just limitless in terms of where we think the opportunities are for startup to come in. I think the second part of it is tourism tech is actually still in a very nascent stage versus biotech versus fintech, for example, versus a lot of research that's going into whether it's stem cells. And because of that, I do think that tourism tech is actually a very fertile ground for startup to come in and to be able to pilot a lot of this new solutioning. With the onset of COVID, and how it's kind of changed the entire ecosystem of how travel tourism is being viewed, there are a few areas that we see to be really pertinent in how we would really like to accelerate the co-solutioning process. And some of them are, for example, contactless experience, right? How do we make sure that when borders start opening up, when people are ready to travel and they are willing to travel internationally, how do we ensure the safety of some of this? And therefore, how do we ensure contactless experience is maximized when you are in destination? Second areas that we think has huge opportunities are virtual experience. I mean, you could see Amazon announcing last week that even Amazon is offering virtual trips and virtual experience on their platform. Airbnb is actually going into that realm as well. To offer Airbnb virtual experiences. So we think that that whole area of virtual experiences is a huge untapped area for NTOs to look at. And that to us is an area of opportunity that we're really looking at.
From my experience in Build the World with my, first of all, friends and now also business partners, I think something that really we have in common is curiosity. We are very curious people since day zero when we got this idea of going to Patagonia and taking one of our friends, who is our CEO, Alvaro, who is quadriplegic, taking him to hike with us, a world-class trail, was something that was out of this world. Like it wasn't really easy to conceive how we were going to do it. So we were just curious about it. And that has taken us to different places around the world, connecting with amazing people from around the world, just being curious on trying to learn new things, to connect with people from other cultures. And eventually amazing things like getting to know the STA are going to happen, you know. So curiosity would be one. Another one would be confidence. confidence or ambitious. I don't know. They relate for me. Because you just need to believe in what you're doing. And you need to show confidence when you are pitching, when you're trying to get more people into the team. You need to be super confident and ambitious enough to be able to plan, to dream, but most importantly, to execute and to do things, because ideas are going nowhere. People execute ideas, and you need to be ambitious enough in order to execute those ideas to get to the next level. But that also takes me to the other one, which is being risk tolerant. If you want to have a startup that is going to scale at some point, you need to take a lot of risks. Of course, these are calculated risks, but they are always there. And if you do not take risks, you're not going to move that fast. It's going to take you a lot of time. So just as we were risk takers from day zero when Will the World started by doing this crazy trip, we have to stay with that in our core. It is part of the DNA of Will the World. And that has helped us, to grow. Now we're a team of 15 people based in different countries. We have around 15 destinations, and before COVID, we impacted like 1,200 travelers going and exploring places they never imagined they were going to be able to explore. So, just to wrap up, curiosity, ambition, and manage risk.
I will jump in here. I didn't come up with this. I heard someone said this at a conference, and I thought it really resonated with me. But to me, I think it's a mixture of arrogance and ignorance. That it's a potent combination, and I think it really speaks to me. As many of you would know, I'm a true travel and tourism person. My whole life is travel and tourism, right? And I truly believe in it because I do think that this is an industry that touches many people and brings so much joy to so many people as well. I would say that arrogance from the perspective that knowing that I can reimagine or I can imagine what tourism could potentially look like in 5 to 10 years time. And having the conviction and confidence to be able to do that visioning process and leveraging the latest tech to help me reach that envisioning, to me is very important. But ignorance as well, from the perspective that I'm not tech trained, that gives me the license to ask really basic, stupid questions with many of the partners that I could leverage on to learn. And I do think that the combination of both is what I think the last 10 months of journey for us in being able to unlock many exciting and meaningful conversations with the tech partners. And the fruitfulness of this conversation was really from the level of, I know where tourism can be and the potential of tourism experiences and tourism product and how we can take this into the next frontier. But it also allows me to ask really fundamental questions in terms of, how does this work? Like, how do I translate 5G, right, into tourism? How do we leverage it? How do I leverage 5G and the power of 5G to power the kind of the new future in tourism? I do think that the humility of coming into the space, but having that really open and curious mind of learning and then of trying to apply it, it's rewarding and very fruitful.
That was fascinating, Demian. I must admit, I really enjoyed watching that because so many people have wondered, how in the world do you make these things happen? What stood out for you?
Well, there are two key things. I mean, the first, it might sound a little bit arrogant, but I've heard a lot of this before, but I find that reassuring, right? When we ask them, what are the key things necessary for a successful startup, right? And they said, an innovative idea, passion about that solution, the product market fit, and the trust in the team, right? The trust that she has to have in that team. What I find reassuring about that is that, yeah, we hear this over and over again. So if you are thinking about starting up a business, you don't have to go out and figure out, okay, what makes this successful? What do I need to do? Here it is. Everybody's saying the same thing. And there was another one that she brought up, which was scalability. And I think that's the one that people forget sometimes. You may have this lovely idea, but it has minimum application. It only maybe works in your town or for a very specific business. For people to want to invest and take that risk and spend time mentoring you or whatnot, it has to have scalability. You're going to have to be able to grow that. And I think that's something people forget at the early stages. So reassuring that it's the common things that everybody talks about, plus this idea of scalability that I think sometimes people forget.
Those are two really good points. And I think one thing I'm really loving about what you said about particularly the first part, a lot of it was intuitive, but there's something about when we hear it actually said by someone who's lived it that substantiates that thinking and makes it really knowledgeable. I think the fact that you didn't want to feel arrogant, because in theory, you are older than all of us. So you have heard it a lot more often than
And wise, and wise.
True.
Speaking about the arrogance, that was another point that I really liked. They talked about the fact that you need to have a combination of arrogance and ignorance.
Yes.
Right? So arrogant and ignorant. I'm pointing at you. No, in all seriousness. I mean, that is, right? You have to be arrogant to say, I have a great idea. This is going to work. And I'm going to convince you of it. You need to have that confidence if you want.
Exactly.
The ignorance is, I have a lot to learn. If you think you know everything, if it's all arrogance, you're in trouble. So finding that balance where you are confident and arrogant enough to believe in your idea, but understanding that you don't know everything, I think that's a critical combination.
And that's a great connection point to what I took out, which was really important, that everyone needs a champion. Everyone needs someone to open those doors, but not just open the doors, make very clear where the locked doors are. And I thought it was really interesting, the dynamic between Singapore Tourism Board and the startup and how they really needed each other, which links to my second point. I loved how excited KERSHING got at the end of the interview when she talked about her awe and her appreciation of what was being done with Wheel the World. I thought that was just so fabulous because you could see she was excited. It was something she believed in, right, and she wanted to make it happen for them through STB. I thought that was really special because ultimately, whether it's a startup or it's a tourism authority, we're all people. And if we want an idea to come to life, we need that conviction, we need that confidence, but we also need to have the credibility of character and idea to make it work. And as you say, make it global and make it a really big idea, yeah, and a big business. Yeah. Brilliant.
And the point about global I thought was interesting was that they are on opposite sides of the world. Right? You don't need to raise money from the people in your own backyard. There may be somebody somewhere else that likes your idea, that understands it. So understanding how to reach people, looking for organizations, looking for venture capital funds or angel investors elsewhere. Don't just stay local. It is a global world and a global business environment. So I think that was a really good lesson there as well.
And especially with connectivity and in 2020, I mean, you live in a completely different world than I do, but somehow we made RISE work because I think importantly, the idea was understood, the values were aligned. That's really, really important. And everyone was committed for the long run because otherwise it can't be about short-term excitement. The big issue with startups becoming big businesses, it takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And if you don't have the people around you you can trust and believe in, it's too high risk. It's not going to happen. Yeah. I enjoyed this session. I'm grateful for it.
Talking about having great people around you, that's a perfect segue into our next episode on RISE. We're going to focus on the world of consulting. We decided to do this primarily because this is a moment in time when many people with lots of great experience, wisdom, and ideas may find themselves out of work, in between jobs, or looking for some new experience. And consulting is often a place that they think that they might be able to share that with other clients, companies, or even individuals. So we're going to bring on a few really great consultants from the hospitality and travel and tourism industries to talk about opportunities and challenges in consulting right now and how the world of COVID and coronavirus are impacting that industry. So I think that's going to be really interesting for a lot of people who might be thinking about consulting for their next step.
And interestingly, it actually links to a program we did 2 live ago, which is about entrepreneurship.
Sure.
When we talked about got what it takes, because a lot of people think, can't find a job, I think I'll consult. It's a very different requirement of a person. As someone who's been consulting for almost 2 decades, it's not easy. So it'll be really good to speak to consultants about what does it take, not just professionally, but personally, to be a good consultant. So I look forward to that. I look forward to seeing you on the live stage, Demian. Until then, to everyone, stay safe, stay hopeful, keep your hands clean, and we'll see you on Rise.
Bye, everybody.